ideas. So we'll just start at the beginning.
That's a good place to start.
Absolutely. We could start at the end and go backwards. You were
Once upon a time,
Once upon a time in...
there was this little kid in Brooklyn called Bob Smith, you know. And I wanted everybody to love me. So I became Wolfman Jack and everybody loved me. No, it went something like that anyway. Where Wolfman Jack really started was on a big Mexican radio station outside of Del Rio, Texas, in the little town of Coahuila, the state of Coahuila, the town of Acuña, Coahuila, Mexico. This was a very powerful radio station on the AM band, probably the most powerful commercial radio station ever was, and on the AM band, in America anyway. I know they got some powerhouses that shoot across Europe and everything, but this is America.
This was a 250,000...
I just noticed we're on television, huh?
Well, no, it's just on these video screens, you know. As I say, it's like a Who gig.
Huh? Oh, I'm sure they're taping it too, man, you know. Anyway, back a long time ago, this is about 1963, really. 64, in that area. This guy from Brooklyn managed to get himself on the airwaves there. And I have a book coming out that tells the whole story about it. Matter of fact, it'll be June 15th. It's miraculous what happened, how I got into that situation. As a little kid, I always listened to this radio station. I was one of those kind of folks you call a radio freak, I guess. You know, I had transoceanic radio and a whole bunch of different other, you know, I listened to all the disc jockeys and different people and copied styles, and figured out how they communicated and why they made me feel good. And I took all the good, positive things out of most of the greatest disc jockeys in the world, people like Moondog, who was Alan Freed, you know, and Big John R. from WLAC down in Nashville, Tennessee, playing that good rhythm and blues. Hoss Allen, Fat Daddy Washington. These all are great disc jockeys. Magnificent Montague. These jocks would turn you around and flip you upside down. Magnificent Montague told me one time, he said, Wolfman, if you ain't sweating, you ain't working. So I always remember that. So every time I'm on the radio, I'm sweating, baby. I'm working hard.
I'm sweating now.
I am too, these lights. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to take this leather thing off.
A gift from Clint Eastwood, I think.
Huh?
A gift from Clint Eastwood.
It's my own creation.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
What if it reminds you of Clint Eastwood? That's all right.
You know, that spaghetti look.
Yeah. Anyway, to tell you the story of how this all came to pass would take, indeed, at least a good hour. To cut it short and go over all the small things. What I'll try to do is I'll try to bring it all down to about 2 minutes. That's going to be tough, but I'll try to do that.
I'd rather you did the hour.
Really? Well, I'd rather do the 2 minutes.
Okay.
Anyway, I was at the time doing a radio gig. I was Big Smith with the Records in Shreveport, Louisiana, doing a morning country show on some little peanut whistling in Shreveport. My wife had just had 2 babies, and I was crazy to find out what was going on at XERF, because they would run preachers during the early part of the evening up to around midnight. And then at midnight, they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They'd run country gospel, black gospel. They run all kinds of crazy stuff after the midnight hour. So I wanted to go down to Del Rio to talk to the people who are running that station, see if I couldn't put this character Wolfman Jack on the air. So I showed up on the scene. And the man who was running the station at that time was a guy by the name of Arturo Gonzalez, the heaviest dude in that area. He was an international lawyer. There's a whole story about him, too. Self-made man. Became a lawyer through, you know, correspondence courses, man, and he made it on through, came over the border of Mexico. Now he owned Del Rio, and he owned Acuña, and he owned that radio station. So I had a meeting with him the next day. So me and my partner decided we'd go out and look at the radio station. Well, I had a brand new Super 88, you know, one of those big Oldsmobile convertibles. I didn't want to take it across the border. I figured I wouldn't have anything left when I got back. So we got a cab driver to take us over there. And then we finally got over there. He took us to Boys Town, which is just red light district. You know, all the girls do their thing. So then we found another cab driver. We wanted to go out to see the station. He says, there's no roads to the station. I said, okay, well, take us out to the station. You put some money on him. The guy took us out. All of a sudden, we were out there, black as you can see. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face if you raised it, you know. And we're driving through these sand dunes late at night. All of a sudden, out in the distance, you see this little red light blinking like this. And as we got closer, you could see it was a radio tower. And as we got closer, there was little lights around the buildings. And there was two buildings. One I found out was a building that housed the generator to supply the power to the radio station. The generator was big as a locomotive in a train, you know. And the other building was where the radio station was, the transmitter. I also found out when you got out there, because it was so powerful, in AM radio, you got this RF stuff that drifts around. You don't see it, but it's there. And it's like you just got a package of good weed, you know, and you just did the whole damn thing. When you get out of the car, that's how you feel. I said, wow, man, this is out of sight. So you go inside, they're having a union meeting. And we find out that the station is in receivership. And it means that I found out later that Arturo Gonzalez had pulled a hell of a deal with the preachers he had on the air. He went to all these holy roller preachers, prayer cloth preachers, and he told him, he says, Reverend Allen, he says, if you give me $2 million, I'll give you that spot on XRF for the rest of your life. Well, they all came up with the bucks, all of them, from 7 until midnight. So he collected like 8 or 10, 9, 12 million, whatever the hell it was. And he stopped paying Social Security and all the other stuff. Stopped, you know, making his payments because there's a clause in the contract with the preachers at the bottom that if the Mexican government takes over the radio station, his contract is null and void. So for 2 years here, he hadn't been paying the government. Now, he is going after the preachers, telling them, you got to pay to be back on the air because the station has been taken over by the Mexican government. And there's an interventor in there who is controlling the finances and the radio station. I show up on the scene when they're having a union meeting in the middle of the night, out in the middle of nowhere. I walk in, there's this great big transmitter. It looks from like outer space, you know, big, beautiful thing. In front of it, there's little coal things sitting. And these Mexican dudes, you know, cooking goat meat in front of the transmitter. One guy polishing the damn thing. I go to the back where the studio is, having this meeting. And while they're having the meeting, Reverend Jessup is on the air preaching, you know, yes, God, if you send in $25 right now, the Lord's magic number, Reverend Jessup going to send you a personally signed prayer cloth for me. You know, that's going on in the background. So I walk in, I meet this cat by the name of Mario Alfaro who spoke English. None of the other people spoke English. I could communicate with Mexican folks real well. Even though I don't speak it, I communicate with them. But this guy spoke English. And I found out what they were doing. They wanted to appoint their own interventor because the one that was appointed by Gonzalez when he was pulling this deal with the preachers were playing bad head games on the boys who were running the radio station. First of all, they weren't paying them half the time. And then they would come in, if somebody didn't like what was going on, they'd come in and beat the hell out of them, you know? So they wanted to get rid of this guy. And here comes the Wolfman on the scene with a pocket full of money, my buddy with me, my Starfire Oldsmobile right across the border. What do you guys need? I got it all here. I started taking out the money and laying it on the table. Immediately, they loved me. I laid out about $1,000 in $100 bills, and I said, I want you all to have one. And that'll show that you can trust me. Well, they were amazed. So immediately, I took control of the radio station. From then on, it was a process of calling the preachers and getting the money coming to me. I sent the boys off to Mexico City to get a new interventor to take over the radio station. And in the meantime, I walked in on the situation and took over this radio station. Here I was going to present this tape to Arturo Gonzalez to put Wolfman Jack on the air. And here I was on the air. The next night, of course, I went on the air as Wolfman Jack. And that's how Wolfman Jack was born.
Right.
Of course, there's a lot more involved. That's the short story. It was longer than 2 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was good. Just go back 1 second. You went on the air as Wolfman Jack. Now, when did you develop that name and character?
Say it again.
You said you went on the air
Yeah.
as Wolfman Jack at that particular with that station in Mexico.
Right.
When did you develop that character or that name, and why was it that as opposed to?
Well, you know that everything in entertainment is acting. Even singing is acting. Playing an instrument is acting. And if you want to be a good actor, you create a character for yourself. And then you act it out. You become that character. Now I have fully become the Wolfman character. It's taken me over. I mean, I can't get away from it anymore. And before, I used to be able to hide the bushes, you know, and nobody saw who I was. And I said, oh, that was good. I could go out and communicate with folks and talk to them. Now I can't talk to anybody. They say, oh, Wolfman, he's here. Yeah, okay, sign an autograph, go away. And we do that kind of thing now. But that's nice, too. Now, the character had always been in me. I had other characters in me, too. I used to do a character by the name of Daddy Jules. Daddy Jules was a real funny cat. And I did another person called Roger Gordon, who played symphonic music. And I was Big Smith with the records, you know, playing hillbilly music. And I did good with all those formats. I liked all the music. But my real special love was rhythm and blues, and the blues. And I created Wolfman for that. Because there was the Hound from Buffalo, you know, and there was Moondog, Wolfman. See, it all fits, you know what I mean?
So when you went on the air for this station, what were you playing?
Playing rhythm and blues. By then I had a library of down-home rhythm and blues that nobody could compete with.
And this was pre-rock and roll as we know it.
This was rock and roll was underway. It was like 1963, you know. The good tunes were out. The Fats Domino things were cooking, and all the black artists were doing really well. And the only white cats who were making it were like Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and a few other, you know, people were in there too. But it was just the beginning of rock and roll. Rock and roll really started when the Beatles explosion hit, and then everybody went frantic, you know what I mean? And all you English guys came over with all your fancy hoo-ha-hee and everything, and we went crazy, boy. You guys brought us a whole lot of fun, you know that?
It's funny because we were copying what you'd been doing.
I know.
So it goes. How long were you at this station for?
At XCRF?
Yeah.
Let me see, about 2 years altogether. At night. I was on every night for about 2 years. And boy, that station made some money, man. It was unbelievable. I used to go in and look at the mail. And we would get mail from every state, every town, everybody in the United States of America wrote to that radio station. It's funny, the Del Rio post office, half the post office was dedicated to XCRF. They always had about 6 mailbags, big puffy mailbags every day came in. At least 6,000, 7,000 pieces of mail every day. Because we were running mail order, you know, things, you know, we had I had a whole bunch of stuff on the air with Wolfman. Always had at least 2 record packages running. Wolfman's Lucky 20, you know, the BB Blues Boy King Blues Special and all that stuff. $3.95 cash check or money order. And then, of course, as time went on, I stayed on the air. There was a whole thing staying on the air, too, because they tried to kill me while I was there. But that's all in the book. You guys can really enjoy that. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for a few nice people who I happened to duck at the right time, you know. That didn't get me. Anyway,
I
was lucky.
The signal this station was putting out was more powerful than practically any station within the U.S.
Well, you know why that is, don't you? If you don't know why that is, I'll explain it to you. There was back in the old days, when radio first started, they realized there was going to be a problem. And they have on AM what they call as a clear channel. That means no one else is on that frequency within 20 kilocycles of that frequency. Now, they were already plotted out, and they decided that in the United States of America, they would only allow these stations to be 50,000 watts. Right. At 50,000 watts, you could damn near cover all the way across the United States. You'd at least cover half the United States with that signal at night. Because you see, AM bounces off the ionosphere. It's like a ball, you know. During the daytime, the ionosphere comes down, so the ball doesn't bounce too far. At night, it moves way up here, and it goes, psh, goes way out there. You don't know where the hell it's going. Now, in Canada and Mexico, they allowed certain stations to go unlimited power because they only gave them about 4 or 5. We had maybe 50 of them in the United States. 4 or 5 were granted to Canada. 4 or 5 were granted to Mexico. So that's why that station was a super powerful station. Now, to this day, there's still a few of them here in Canada that boom all over the country. You know, those big AMs from the one in Detroit. What is it?
I don't know any of these
I
guys.
know, man. I know.
BBC is my limit.
I know. Yeah. Powerful stations. Unbelievable.
After the 2 years you spent at the station, what happened then?
Well, I got involved in so many good things.
You went up to New York, I think, and worked with Alan Freed or the Paramount.
Well, that's when I was a kid.
Oh, that was sorry, I'm out of sequence.
That's
then.
way before that.
Right.
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, I used to cut school and go hang out at the local black radio station, and I learned how to run the board and everything. And I was Smitty then, you know, a gopher for the jocks. You know, I go down and they even let me pick liquor up for them in the liquor store. I was only about 13 or 14 years old. And I ran all the errands for them. They taught me what I had to know. And I hung around there and cut school all the time. And my parents thought I was going to wind up to be a, you know, they didn't know what the hell to do with me. Anyway.
And what was playing at the Paramount in those days? Those big
well, they used to run a movie.
Shows
they'd run a movie, and then they'd run a 45-minute show with 10 acts. It's a funny thing, man. Here you had these great acts with #1 records, you know. Jackie Wilson, James Brown, Jerry Lee Lewis. They were lined up on the stage. All they were allowed to do was the song they had on the radio at that time. They'd do one song and get off. And there was a big band backing up all of them. Big Jay McNeely, you know. Big Al Sears and those people with the band guys. I was a little kid. First time I met Alan Freed, I said, hey, I'll do anything for you, man. You know, just ask me. You know, just let me in. Let me help you out. You don't have to pay me. I want to learn what's going on. He said, get out of my way, kid. That's when I first met him. But I was persistent. I started working for the stagehands now. And I hung out with the stage guys. Finally, they got used to me getting them coffee and all that stuff. Because all the money I made, I'd saved up. I'd go buy people coffee. And I'd bring them a cup of coffee. I say, here, this is for you. So where'd that come from? I said, from me. Good, thank you, Smitty. Thank you. That's nice, you know. So they got used to me. And I hung around.
Presumably you got to meet some of the artists.
Yeah, I met Jackie Wilson. I met James Brown. I met a lot of people. Bobby Darin. There's a whole lot of people I met when I was doing that kind of stuff. And then lo and behold, when I finally started doing the Midnight Special, which I did for like 9.5 years, which was the greatest live rock and roll music television show ever was. And I think they're eventually going to put it on VH1. That's what they're talking about anyway, the old tapes. We got 585 hour-and-a-half programs. That it's all the great stuff from the 70s, man. It's unbelievable, you know. Plus all the stuff that went back through the 60s. We did some unbelievable oldie shows too. It was really fantastic.
How did you get onto the Midnight Special? I mean,
They wanted me. They came. At that time I was on K-Day Radio in Los Angeles. I just got kicked off XCRB, which was another Mexican station that I took over. When the Mexicans finally got me out of there, I went bankrupt. You know, I owed a lot of people money. I told them, I said, hold on. I said, let me get my stuff back together again. I'll pay all you guys back. I ain't going to go bankrupt. I owed like $600,000 at that time. All the bankers were very nervous, you know. They were afraid I was going to dip out on them. But I didn't. I paid them all back. They let me have it. And I borrowed another 20 grand to make it back, you know. Anyway, that's another story.
Right, and it's in the book.
I was on K-Day Radio, and Rocco Ubertsky came to me. He's a big producer now. And he used to sit in the control room while I was doing the show, you know. And when I was doing the show, we used to sit there and smoke grass, you know, and do the radio show. And we were the first ones on the air to do what the FM stations were doing, you know. What do you call it? The freeform radio and that kind of stuff. Playing album cuts and all that stuff. So we were very hip. Bob Wilson was running the radio station, the guy who originally has Radio and Records. You familiar with that? Yeah. Radio and Records. Bob Wilson was a program director, and he's the one who innovated all that. He's a genius guy. And I didn't know I had all these geniuses around me, what we would do, and I was just doing the Wolfman thing. Anyway, him and John Lennon used to always, when John Lennon was working, he hang out with me too. And they all used to sit around the studio. And I'd do the radio show, about a 5-hour show all night. And they'd all be sitting in the corner, gathered around, everybody getting loaded, you know. And we were doing a radio show. Well, Rocco has been hanging out with me. He says, you know, they're doing this show, the Midnight Special. And I told him about you, Wolfman. They want you to do it. You got to go down and see this guy Stan and talk to him. So I had these teeth at the time made, you know, that were like long fangs.
Like vampire type.
Yeah, because I did like a movie thing. Somebody heard Wolfman and said, we'll go put him in a vampire movie. That'll be good. You know, he can wave at people with his teeth on. Anyway, I had these teeth. So I went to do the interview. I put the teeth in because they look real. I mean, when I'd stand in elevators and I'd smile at somebody, you know, and the teeth would be hanging down there, scared the shit right out of them, you know. They really look good. So I go in to do this interview with Stan. I got the teeth on. And Stan leans over. He says, Wolfman, are they your teeth? I said, no, Stan, they're not my teeth. But he caught on anyway. And I got the job.
I must get some.
So there you go.
Now, you had this famous appearance in American Graffiti, which really took you beyond.
There's another thing, George Lucas.
Yeah, now tell us
He's
about
another buddy. He's another one who used to listen to Wolfman down there in Modesto, wherever he lived. It wasn't Modesto. It was.
Well, that was where the film, I think, was shot, wasn't it?
It was a town near Modesto where we shot it. But he was another kooky guy that really wanted to get in the film business. Like I wanted to get in the radio business. I understood him. So he used to come and hang out with me all the time. And he was interested in the phone calls. He'd sit for hours and listen to my phone calls, I had them on tape. And he'd even take the phone calls and start re-editing them, you know, and stuff. I said, man, don't mess with my tapes. And he would recut them and everything. And I didn't know he was doing this all the time. And then the movie thing came up. I remember on a Monday morning, they called me over at Universal Studios. They said, somebody wants to see you over Universal. They want you to do a movie. I said, okay. So I ran over there, and who's sitting behind the desk? George Lucas. I said, what's the matter, man? You need money, right, to do this film? You want me to contribute to the film? He said, no, Wolfman, we want you to be in the movie. I said, oh, isn't that wonderful? And then I found out, he gave me the script, and I read the movie. I said, George is a hit, man. It's going to be a monster movie. It's pure genius. And he said, I know. I said, it's unbelievable. I remember the guy at Universal was a guy by the name of Ned Tannen at that time, right?
Producer, yeah.
And when the movie was finally done, and it was coming out, George wanted to put it in the main theaters, you know, the big ones. But Jesus Christ Superstar was out at that time. And that was bombing all over the place. It had all the best theaters. So I remember there was a fist fight one time in a movie theater over what they're going to do with American Graffiti, because old Ned thought this was a real stiff. He was only produced for, what, 150 grand or something, and we paid $300,000 for the music tracks. And that's about all the movie cost, where he just spent about $4 million on Jesus Christ Superstar, and he couldn't understand how this movie shot in 16 millimeter was going to make it on the big screen. Anyway, you know the history of that movie. It came out and there was lines around the block, man. Only George and I knew that was a hit. I knew it was a hit because it was Americana. It was what we do in the evening time. You listen to a great disc jockey, play great rock and roll records, and you go out and score, man. And you meet guys, you meet ladies, and you flash your car around, and you do the best thing that's the most fun in the world. It's a shame a lot of kids can't do that nowadays. I'm on the air every Friday night, though. We're trying to get cruising back again in a lot of these towns. I do a show from Planet Hollywood from 7 to 11 o'clock on Friday night, live from Planet Hollywood. And I think I'm doing a great show, and I'm on about 50 stations, so I'm pretty much scattered all over the United States. But I'm not in the real big cities yet. I'm like in the rural areas around the big cities. So I'm getting calls in from these different areas, and it's starting to catch on. I've only been doing it about 2 months now, but it's starting to get back. The old Wolfman's starting up again.
Do you find, I mean, radio is obviously very, very different now to how it was when you started out and that whole 50s, 60s period. And one of the things that strikes me about America, well, radio generally, actually, worldwide, is that there aren't any characters on it anymore. I mean, well, the art of the disc jockey is, I don't even know what it is now.
I know, it's a shame. You know, radio becomes such a business that they've really taken a lot of the entertainment out of it. And I was just at a NABOB meeting 2 days ago. That's the National Association of Negro-owned broadcasters. All these black dudes that own radio stations. And they were honoring Quincy Jones, who was a great, innovative man. I mean, this man is a genius when it comes to doing new things. And he, too, has already gone out and bought 2 radio stations. He bought one in New Orleans. He's got one in Long Island, I think. He couldn't get it into New York. But he's going to take and do a whole new thing with his station in New Orleans. Because he said that's where the music was born, was in New Orleans. That's where jazz was born. And he's going to take and throw all the books out the window. And he's going to, he says, like he said that night, the technology is here now with all this digital stuff. Now he can communicate all over the world. All you need is one outlet to do it from, you know? Because if that one outlet is making it, they're all going to spike down. Pull that outlet up and pretty make it go all over the world. Because the technology's here. He says, it's time now to get off that dirt road, baby, and get on that super highway and start riding. And I said, my. I said, here the old Wolfman getting started back again. And here old Quincy Jones, he's throwing out the rule books. And that's something I always wanted to do. So I think I'm going to get, eventually my dream's going to come true. I'm going to get to throw all the rule books away. And eventually I want to do the Wolfman Jack show. And I want to play whatever I want to play. You know, if it's a new record, I'm going to play it. If it's an oldie, I'm going to play it. If it's a fresh artist nobody ever heard, I'm going to play it. You know what I mean? That doesn't exist anymore. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I mean, how do you feel about this formatting, which has been split down and halved and halved and halved? And
that's exactly what you said. They have cut it down in so many ways. There's so much of a variety of formats in rock and roll now that it doesn't make any sense anymore. Here you got great artists out there performing, people like Bonnie Raitt and Lyle Lovett and all these, Delbert McClinton. I mean, the cats who played a good bluesy rock and roll country type thing, which is really the happening music. And nobody can put them together in one format. It's kind of like this guy. No, this guy's country. We can't put him in a rock format. No, she's too country. She's too blues. No, can't put her. You know what I mean? Why?
What do you think about the advent of consultants? You know, all these characters who run around telling radio stations what they ought to be.
That's another problem.
Because that to me has
get me started, man. I don't like it serious. I don't want to get mad now. Don't get on my bad side now. Let's not talk about those guys, all right?
Listen, in England we have an all-woman station, an all-comedy station, you know, an all-shit station. I don't know.
Oh man. there's so much uselessness going on radio right now that it's unforgivable. These magnificent facilities are pumping puke out. They might as well be doing that over the air and then people are listening and say, oh, listen to that. Oh, isn't that fine? You know what I mean? That's what they're doing, man.
No, I don't listen. I mean, I don't listen to the radio anymore as a consequence of that. Maybe that's a generational thing, but it seems to me the whole thing... I mean, the one thing funny enough, about radio now is it seems to have less to do with music and everything to do with advertising.
Well, you remember when they were selling radio stations for all that money?
Yeah. They still do, I think.
That's quit. A lot of people lost a lot of bucks over that now. Now, they're selling the prices down, so a lot of people are jumping in buying radio stations now. The trouble is, most of the people that are buying these big radio conglomerates are people who have been in other businesses, like, they've been in the textile business, or they've been in the, biscuit business or something. They don't know what they're doing, man. And sure, they go out and they hire these people who have the credentials, supposedly, because they got hired by other people who didn't know what they were doing. And they did something with the radio station, because with all that wide variety out there, even if you're going, whoever does the best is going to win the rating battle, right? And that's what they're doing.
It's good for the sale of beans, I would imagine.
That's right. But now back in the radio thing again, which I enjoy so much. And I wanted to do it live. When I quit my syndication back about 7 years ago, I couldn't get a job nowhere. They didn't want to have nothing to do with Wolfman. It was all straight down, man, time and temperature. They barely wanted a disc jockey to talk on the radio. They wanted to play all straight music, I had no way of getting in. And the time went by, and I had a few little stations still hanging on in little markets, that would run the Wolfman Jack Graffiti Gold Show, which I've got probably 32,000 hours of Wolfman Jack on tape, which we're now transferring to all digital, We're going over to the digital side now, trying to preserve all of that. Because I hired some great writers in my time, man. I've had some great people who went on to be really great, stars in their own right, that worked with me throughout the years. So there's a lot of great stuff in there that, will keep running forever. That's the way I wanted to do it originally. Anyway, what did you ask me?
I can't remember.
I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
It's all right, neither of us do. I was talking about your recording, because you were making records, because you did an album with Kenny Rogers, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a good album. Kenny, I remember he did a song called There's an Old Man in Our Town. And that album did pretty good. There was one, I've always been trying to get the races together, I always knew in my mind that if we don't start loving one another, eventually shit's going to happen. And, even to this day, it's gotten better, yes, but it's still, you got a lot of white and black folks out there that are really don't have it up here, and they want to keep this thing going. So I came out with a record called I Ain't Never Seen a White Man. It went to like number 40 on the charts. It blew my mind. And, of course, all the hit records I've ever had been with, like Burton Cummings. He wrote a song about the Wolfman called Clap for the Wolfman. That went up to number 1. That was wonderful. But I didn't get no money from that, That was wonderful. It was a great song. And then Todd Rundgren, my dear friend Todd, he wrote a song called Wolfman Jack, which climbed the charts, went to about number 12 or something. And
Leon Russell.
There's been about 5 others,
It was Leon Russell, Freddie King, I think.
Yeah, Freddie King, Leon Russell, they wrote a song called Living on the Highway about the Wolfman. And there's about, I don't have any of those records. It's strange, I should maybe try to find where they are.
Yeah,
and put them all out on one album or something.
Yeah, there's a compilation in there.
Yeah, there's about 12 of them or something like that, 10 or 12 of them.
Get K-Tel onto that.
Huh?
Get K-Tel onto that.
Yeah, there's Sugarloaf did a thing called the All Night Creature on, they always wanted me to do that voice thing. When I've done it on the road with them, I've been on the road with, where am I now?
On the road.
On the road, right.
With Sugarloaf, yeah.
With Sugarloaf, right. Corbetta, yeah.
I mean, presumably before you started doing personal appearances, a lot of listeners thought you were black.
Yeah, that's good. That's good because then I could get the white folks to come in, see? Back in the old days, you guys probably don't even remember it. I got any old people out here?
Yeah,
Anybody
yeah.
remembers back the old days? No, you ain't. You're just a young fella, too. Back in the old days, they wouldn't let you listen to rhythm and blues, the white folks, you know? You had to hide, man, under your pillow and listen to it. You know?
Yeah, it's funny because the few
So
American...
that's, you know, I was doing this Wolfman Jack act, and I had a lot of good teachers, black dudes, teach me how to do this stuff, which you'll read in the book. It's an interesting book. You're going to like it. And it took a long time to do. Whenever you write a book, man, it's like psychoanalyzing yourself. Have you done it?
Not yet.
Not you. Will you get to it, man?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I've got my title. I'm going to call it Everyone a Scumbag. But no, I haven't done a book yet.
Well, you got to do a lot of remembering.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times you don't want to remember, you know? Because you do stupid things along the way and you want to say, hey, I wish I'd never done that. But you did it. You got to move on down
I mean, you
the
had a
road.
bit of a run-in with drugs, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I was big into drugs, but I never had to go get straightened out. You know, there's people who do drugs who are habitual people, got to have it all the time. Some of those guys should never get away with it, could never get away from it. Most of them who couldn't get away from it died, and those other ones are now, eventually, I hope, you know, Sly gets back in the race again. I'd love to see Sly Stone get back out. But he's another one of those cats that just can't get away from it. And as long as they keep doing it, they ain't going to get back in the race again, you know? Because it's not fashionable anymore to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've been clean about 6 years now, man. And,
Good for you.
You know, but I was heavy into it. Loved that cocaine. Just like they all did, you know? And back in those days, we used to do the real good stuff. They ain't got no good shit around no more.
Yeah. Now it's talcum powder.
Yeah.
What am I saying? I don't... But you do some work now for drug-related charities and educational programs, don't you?
I wish we could get rid of all these drug things. That crack is the worst thing in the world, man. People don't really, you know, what I'm starting to think in my mind, maybe the government wants this to happen. God, I hope not, because they're keeping everybody stupid, you know? By keeping everybody stupid, you keep making money from them, right? Maybe that's why the drug thing's so powerful. What do you think? Oh, you refuse to comment?
No. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I mean, I often hear people over here in the States.
Why can't we get rid of it, man? Why don't they go bomb the area where it comes from?
Well, there's all this stuff about, you know, it's a CIA plot to keep people...
To keep people down, right? Especially the poor folks who they're pulling out of jobs now, who got nowhere to go. These are the people that are going to connect up with the drugs. These are the people that are going to go out and buy the machine guns. And these are people going to be coming to your house
Well,
in the middle of the night looking for your money and your life.
I'll hire Harrison Ford to protect me.
Yeah.
Where are we? I've completely lost the plot here. I mean, when did you get into the drug thing? Very early on, or?
I was really early on. Yeah, I was back in '62. Another thing I found out about XCRF, those guys planted their own stuff down there right around the tower. They figured no, really, you know, it was so powerful, this radio station, that you could take a fluorescent bulb and go outside and hold it up in the air, it would glow. A car would pull up to the radio station and lights would stay on.
Yeah,
if they turned the thing, they never used it during the daytime. See, during the daytime, that ionosphere came way down here, you know, so it didn't make no sense. Even with all that power, you'd only reach San Antonio, you know what I mean? They waited till the nighttime came, you know. Then they could scoot that sucker out all over the world. So anyway, but when they turned it on during the daytime to test out the transmitter, birds would come flying towards it. boom. They go run out and grab it and cook it for supper. Really, they used to get these damn birds flying by the... Turn on the transmitter for a half hour, they'd have supper made, you know what I mean?
And it's good for growing the plants, obviously.
Right.
It just sucks them up out of the ground. Where are we? I'm sorry about this. You also you went out and entertained the troops in Vietnam, didn't you?
Well, I was over there once, but I wasn't real close to it. I got fairly close to it. I said, I think I'm going to go home. I don't want to be around this stuff, man. But I was on the radio for those guys for a long time. I was always on the air. They always played the Wolfman Jack radio show. A lot of guys came back from Vietnam and told me, said, you know, we had those records of Wolfman radio show, and they'd be in these little desolate areas. And when the guys start coming at them in the black pajamas, you know, running through the bushes, they'd turn on the Wolfman show and get up there, you know, smoke a joint and start knocking off these guys. There's amazing things they told
Something
me about.
I've wondered about, which is just me speculating, was the Robin Williams character in, what is it, the Vietnam... Yeah, thank you. Was that anything based... Was he trying to...
I in a way, was that guy, because I had a lot of trouble with the generals. They were always censoring my stuff. They were always cutting my lines out and stuff. They didn't feel it was good for the guys over there, you know? But then I got a good producer who was able to channel it by the generals. You know, they always used to have to listen to it first before it went out to the guys. Mm. And this guy was able to he'd run the same damn record to it. So as a certain general knew he didn't listen to it, and he'd run it by him, and it would go out, so everything was cool. But that's my biggest reward, I guess, for being on the air, is those guys coming back. I remember one time, go ahead, tell you a story. Mm. I was doing a benefit thing for the blind or something, and Ray Charles was on the stage, and I was off, it wasn't like off stage, I was like out in the lobby. And Stevie Wonder was there too, and we were doing this big thing, this big stadium. Out in the lobby, everybody was in the auditorium, and all of a sudden down the end of the hall, here come these two big dudes. One guy was black, he weighed about 400 pounds, he looked like he was all muscle. The other guy was a white guy he didn't have no neck, you know, one of these guys, you know. And they come, meanest looking mothers I ever saw in my life, they start walking toward me. I said, how you guys doing? They both picked me up I'm pretty heavy myself. They picked me up off the ground, started to kiss me. Then he passed me to the other guy, and the other guy held me, started to kiss me. Said, we love you. Tears were coming down their cheeks. Said, we love you so much, Wolfman. You saved our lives when we were over there. I said, thank you guys very much. I started to kiss them. We had a big kissing thing going on between three big, ugly guys. It was amazing. That's my reward.
Right. We got a little bit of time left for some questions from the floor. If anybody would like to ask something, please.
Good, I'm glad. We can get out of here.
Yeah, Wolf's gone down the stairs to sign a car, I think, or something.
What do you want?
You'll have to shout out because we can't see you because of the Floyd's lighting rig.
Okay. What's your opinion of going from analog to digital?
Oh, I think it's wonderful, man. It's great. It's great sound. Makes everything sound. You know, you can take a regular cassette tape and play it on a DAT machine and then play it back from the DAT machine. It sounds 200% better, you know? It's the technology is unbelievable. I'm glad it's here.
You're not romantic about vinyl?
Not at all, no. Jesus, no. No, I spent hours and hours trying to take pops and clicks out of records, man.
Yeah. If you put them in hot water, you can make plant pots with them.
Oh, we used to put it on tape and then go to the tape and take that cop out and slice it up. Mm. Try to keep those pops and clicks out, you know?
Right. Another question?
Yeah.
Around, I guess it was about 1975, you did a tour of Canada on behalf of the Chum Group, and you toured through a few of their radio stations?
Great radio stations. Yeah, they're a great bunch of people, man. I know the same folks are there, too.
At that time, I happened to encounter you one day, and I asked you if there was any truth to the fact that you once broadcast out of a station wagon. You had a small transmitter in a mobile unit and moved around. It was part of your legend.
No.
And
no.
You told me at the time that wasn't true.
No, it's not true. Not true.
Well, you did get into California on XERV, was it?
Yeah, that was the Big X over Los Angeles. When I finally moved away from XCRF. All that stuff got solved, and the money got paid back, and me and Arturo became friends, and he took the station back over again. And those preachers are still suing them for their money, but they're still on the air. Right now, they're not on the air anymore. I think XCRF is running nothing but Spanish music now. But then there was a station, XCRB, which is now Express, and they run just Spanish. But it's a 50,000-watt clear channel, which has 2 backup antennas, which when you turn the sucker on, beams the whole load up the West Coast. So you can hear it like in half the United States. It's got a very heavy signal. And I remember when there's a ground system you lay for AM radio too that has all these copper metal wires in it and everything. And if you put water in it, it makes it even more powerful, you know. So you have these sprinklers going around these towers. And we used to penetrate LA during the daytime like a local radio station, even though we were down in Baja, California. So I started running preachers and rhythm and blues and doing the same thing I was doing with XRF. I was very successful. Didn't get no ratings. I did get ratings at night with the station in a lot of different markets. And LA too, but it didn't mean anything because I was doing still mail order stuff then. Oh.
You know a lot about the technical side of broadcasting. You got was it a degree in radio engineering or something?
I know everything about radio and how to run it. FM too. You know, the thing is, if you're going to be in the radio business, man, you got to know it all.
Yeah, but there's a lot of DJs around today who don't even know how to turn the mic on.
Well, it's not my problem.
No. Another question?
Yeah, with all that technical training, I think you have a better mic technique.
Better mic technique? I thought I was using it pretty good. If you heard it back on the tape, it's going to sound real good, man.
In the radio business, we're trained to turn the mic off when we cough.
What? What did he say?
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. I think...
Smart ass.
Wolfman.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about how you wound up doing the clap for the Wolfman song that you guys did.
Well, I was doing a show. I was doing a show. At that time, I think it was some kind of a... something was happening. Anyway,
Right.
Big things were happening here in Toronto. And I was on a podium. It was more than the convention. It was like a... What's happening now? What do they call this? A music what?
This is called music and media, but yeah, it would have been a
Something
radio
like that was
convention.
going on. And I was on a podium and I was signing autographs. I had all these Playgirl playmates with me at the time. And there was like 6 or 8 of them. And they were all sitting down. I was the last one. They'd come down. They get the girls to sign the centerfold, you know. And then they come down to me and I give them a picture, you know. Burton Cummings come up to me. He said, Wolfman, we wrote a song about you. We'd like you to come in the studio and do some liners, you know, in the song. I said, hey, great idea. Oh, wonderful. Oh, thank you so much. Can I bring these girls with me? He said, hey, good idea. I said, how about we get some good shit and go in the studio, man? You know, good idea. Spent 4 days doing that record, man.
Yeah, it's a 2.5-minute single.
Yeah. And we got a #1 record out of that.
Great.
That's how to make a #1 record, I'll tell you.
Okay, couple more. How's my microphone technique? Rich, I think. Yeah.
I'm curious,
You are curious.
you hosted the Midnight Special at a time when we as a society did not see rock and roll on television very often. And I'm wondering if you ever had resistance at that time from artists about, you know, them appearing on television because we didn't see it much at that time.
No, man, they were excited to get on TV. That's where I got to meet everybody. I mean, they all eventually wound up at NBC doing the Midnight Special. And it's funny, you know, back in those days, they'd get real nervous about doing it too. You know, they'd start doing these trips. I'm not going on, you know. Plus, you know, funny thing, at NBC, you'd walk down that corridor when we were doing the Midnight Special, and everybody had their drugs laid out and everything. I said, holy shit, man, I don't know how this goes on like this. But they kept all the doors shut and the security. It was a hard time doing that show. And especially with guys like, never mind, I won't say any name. Certain guys came in with their entourages, you know, and took over the whole damn place. And it was tough. But a lot of times I had to go in with the acts. I had to tell them, hey, we only got an 8-track board, you know, and they wanted their mixer to be there and all that stuff. We went through all those problems in the background. There was a lot of tension going on in the background you guys didn't know about. And I was usually the guy who had to iron everything out and say, listen, you want to be on TV, right? We're going to do this show. It's got to be done this way, you know? So now, when the taping is done, you come back in and pull the guitar up a little bit if you want, or do this with that, you know? But right now, we got to do the show. So that's how we finally got on the air with it. And I was also the instigator. I like to put the acts together. And, you know, when you got egos around, it's tough putting people together to perform together and do things. We got some really fine performances out of a lot of great talented acts that would never work with anybody else, so they actually work together. And I met a lot of really fine people. They're all wonderful people, you know. Every artist I've ever met in my life is a really a precious person, man. And they're really dedicated to what they do.
Do you think shows like that were basically killed off by the advent of video? I mean, up until I know we've got Unplugged and Plugged In, and
well, you know,
VH1 are going to do
I remember that's when I quit doing the Midnight Special,
right.
when they started coming in, and you know they stopped doing. The bands were then just making phony, moving around. The tracks were already made and everything. I said, this isn't the way. See, I believe in head vibrations, you know. I always have. A lot of reasons why you have hit records is because when they were performing the actual record, the musician or the artist that's doing it, no matter what he's playing, was feeling the spirit of what that thing was. And that's what you also feel when you hear the song. And when they phony it up in the background and some guy is going to come back and do his vocal, you know, just lip sync it, or it's not the real thing anymore.
No, I agree with you, absolutely. I think that
So
I think
quit.
television generally, not your show, but television generally has trivialized popular music over the years, and it's never been presented as a sort of part of popular culture. It was something that it was cheap programming which they put on late at night, and that's still pretty much true today.
Nowadays, do live rock and roll on television costs a fortune.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
You've been around those things.
Oh, absolutely,
you know
yeah.
what I'm talking
Yeah, it's virtually impossible to do.
about. So
now.
to cut the expenses down, you know, we bring the track in and the guy lip syncs, you know what I mean? That don't work, man. It's just not real.
One more question?
You come from an era where people, shall we say, were very imaginative about promoting records to disc jockeys. What were some of the crazier promotional things you saw?
Good question.
I don't know, man. You see, I think other disc jockeys got more of that than I did. I usually kept out of the limelight. I wouldn't take payola. I wouldn't accept drugs. They couldn't find me back in those days. And to try to reach the Wolfman was almost ultimately impossible. And during my days at XERF and XERB, I wasn't looking for that kind of buck, you know? And believe me, I had a lot of people running in there every day wanting to get their records played, willing to pay me money for it, and I wouldn't accept it that way. I did one thing one time where I would say, okay, you want your record played? You're going to have to buy 4 minutes of time together. You know, at $30 a spot, that's $3, $6, $9, that's $120 for that one record to be played. And that's going to go into the cash register. Well, not too many people wanted to do that, so they ran away the other way, you know? And then I said it would have to be put on the air as a commercial announcement. The announcer would say, this is being paid for by Liberty Records, or what it is, and here's the song. They didn't want to do that. But I wouldn't take no payola, so I never really got the gifts of what you're talking about. They never wined and dined me because they could never find me.
It's funny, actually in Europe at the time, I remember when I was a kid growing up, the main source of popular music wasn't the BBC, which was a state aid, it was Radio Luxembourg. And shows like Capital, because I know you were on Capital Radio, the pirate stations, and there would be shows that were entirely, it would say, EMI hour. And,
Right.
and you'd have, and that seemed to legitimize that whole thing.
See, I believe in the public. I believe that when you get the privilege of being on the air and entertaining people, you got to be there for the people. By taking money to do something that's not right, you're ripping the folks off. I've never ripped anybody off in my life, man. I've always been an honest person. I couldn't do that and sleep at night. I really mean that.
Anything else? Anybody else? This gentleman will now take my picture. There you go. You got a first. You got me smiling.
Okay.
Would you please thank Wolfman Jack? Thanks very much.